may go, we are making the same mistake that was made during the colonial period. We are making the same mistake when paper number 10 was discussed by the National Assembly. And that sessional paper number 10 was really described that it was neither African nor socialist, because it was saying that resources should go where there's already development. And that we don't want to repeat. So, Mr. Speaker, I am begging, and I've spoken to many members in this House for the last 1 week. And I had a session with Senator Yusuf Haji in the last 1 hour. And together, I think we can continue to talk until we have a position that is accepted to most of the senators. And I think we should not be afraid that our integrity may be lost because we are seen to be dithering. A lot of decisions that have changed the world have taken quite a bit of time. Even at Serena, we took quite a bit of time. Even after the wars, the discussions that came about, people took a lot of time. So when some people are saying that our integrity will be undermined, and as soon as we make a decision, the debate will be out there, that people disagreed along these lines, I think that is not the right thing to do. So I want to thank Senator Wetangula, because he's the one who came with this proposal, so that all the amendments that are before the Senate, including the Olekina amendment, including Senator Ali's amendment, including Senator Gidiomi's amendment, including Senator Sakaja's amendment, we have an opportunity to discuss them fully with their simulations, so that when we take the vote, we know what the decision we have made, and we are prepared to live with it. So, Mr. Speaker, I don't want to go beyond that, but I beg the House, I really beg the House, that we sleep over this matter and meet at the next sitting, by which time, through your office, we may have organized such a meeting to ensure that we have consensus on this matter. I beg to move.
Have seconders?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in looking for, I beg to second this adjournment motion. Mr. Speaker, in looking for consensus, one must be ready to take a very painstaking process. Mr. Speaker, this week, tomorrow, we are barring one of the most skillful negotiators for peace in this region, President Mkapa of Tanzania. I do recall, Mr. Speaker, we went to discuss in Dar es Salaam about peace in Burundi with the late President Nkurunziza, who was then a rebel fighting to take government. And we sat with President Mkapa, Mr. Speaker, for 72 hours continuously. 72 hours. Negotiating to find a consensus. And at one point, I remember us taking over 12 hours to reach a consensus on just one small thing. I always tell my brother, the distinguished senator from Mandera, we sat in Safari Park with President Museveni to negotiate about Somalia. And some Somali delegate, a man, said something that infuriated a woman in the room. And she stood up and hit him so hard. He fell on the floor, and someone stood up and said, Isideji, Isideji, Isideji. Isideji has now become part of my vocabulary. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge this House that, as Senator Orengo has said, and I believe the majority leader has no difficulty with this, that we can hold this session and have a quick vote. And the majority will have their way. The minority will have had their say. But we are going to create some very serious polarities in the country. I want to urge, Mr. Speaker, that this House, our most important constitutional function is division of revenue. In 1963, Mr. Speaker, the late President Moi, Masinde Muliro, and Ronald Ngala spent their energy crisscrossing this country to tell Kenyans that equity must be the cornerstone of the management of our affairs of the country. Eventually, Kano, that had the majority, saw the sense in what those three great men were saying. And Mr. Speaker, we went 300-degree cycle to come to where Moi, Muliro, and Ngala were to create devolution. And devolution is not about running away with what you can get, but it's about sitting and saying, live and let live. Not live and let die. My count, Mr. Speaker, where you also come from, in the permutation on the floor, we are gaining 928 million. But that's not the end in itself. We can walk away with that money. What about the Kenyan in Kwale? What about the Kenyan in Elgeyo Marakwet? What about the Kenyan in Vihiga? So I want to urge us, Mr. Speaker, it wasn't easy in the last parliament. Murkomen, the senator for Elgeyo Marakwet, Senator Orengo, Senator Khaniri, Senator Cheriot, Senator Mutula Kilonzo can bear me witness. 4 days working, and we are sitting from 7 to 8 with CRA. When we walked here, Mr. Speaker, there was a consensus par excellence. Everybody agreed. So I want to urge the House, Mr. Speaker, that my suggestion that Senator Orengo has talked to does not kill any initiative, does not distinguish any interests. We are polarized. Forget about what the papers are saying. They're polarizing us even more. They are now defining the country by drawing maps, the red zones and the green zones. And when you look at those red zones and green zones, Mr. Speaker, it reminds you of 1963. This is not the direction I would wish us, as the second Senate in the new constitution of this country, to visit to our country. So I want to urge my younger brother, Senator Kangata, because he has been displaying a bit of agitation on this matter, that we all agree that the next sitting session, some consensus would have been built not necessarily on which formula to take, but which steps we should take. And the Constitution is very clear, Mr. Speaker, that if there is no new formula, then the formula in place remains the formula until you have a new formula. So there's no lacuna. The country is not going to operate without a formula. And I want to tell you guys, senators, as I finish, today, you may think that the perimeter you hold dear is the only one that obtains in your county. The next day, there will be a shift of population to a different area of the country altogether because of economic activities. The parameters will change. So there's no fixed position for anybody. The fixed position is the interest of the people of Kenya. That is what should be the fixed position. So with those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I want to urge my colleagues. And I can see that all of us must be patriotic enough to know that the pain of a Kenyan in Gorokocho must be felt by a Kenyan in Vanga. That the pain of a Kenyan in Turkana must be felt by a Kenyan in Murang'a. That is what the nation is all about. That when you hear that somebody has been gunned down in Wajir, you feel the pain because it's your compatriot. That is not the same pain you probably would feel when you hear somebody was gunned down in Fiji, although it's humanity. I urge you, colleagues, my distinguished colleague, the tycoon from Nyeri, I can see you staring at me. This is the direction we should go. And this is the direction that will hold us together. Let's not have winners and losers in this debate. Let's have Kenya as the winner in this debate. Thank you.
Honorable Senators, I propose the question that the debate be now adjourned. Senator Whip Kangata.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me with all due respect to oppose the motion for adjournment. Mr. Speaker, sir, we have discussed this issue for more than, not once, not twice, not 3, not 4 times, not 5. Now this is the 6th sitting we are having to discuss this issue. Mr. Speaker, sir, the options that we have currently before us, it means if one was to support Sakaja's proposal, Senator Sakaja's proposal, if one was to support Senator Irungu Kangata proposal, no county loses this year. So the options that we have before us, they are the best. They are enough. We have discussed, we have caucused, and I think we need now to come and say, this is now the end of the discussion, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I appreciate my minority leader, Orengo. He is a good lawyer, and but surely, after all that discussion, after all those concessions, remember the discussion commenced when we had what we call the CRA, isn't it? We discussed CRA. Then there was a further amendment by the chair of the then committee for the finance committee, Engineer Mohamud. Then there was another one by the then interim chair, Senator Mwaura. Then there was another amendment by the committee. Then that committee, the so-called Linturi formula. Then there was another amendment to propose to come up with, I don't know, 1-year cushioning. Again, we went, now we have another Kangata proposal proposing adjournment or effective days to take 2 years, I don't know, 3 years. Then we have Sakaja's proposal. Mr. Speaker, sir, we have tried all measures. I think it is time now we decide. Kenyans out there, Mr. Speaker, sir, are watching. They want a Senate that is decisive. I am ready, Mr. Speaker, sir, to take whatever outcome that the honorable senators are going to decide here. I'm ready. And I am happy, my brothers, that now the kind of options that we have on the table, at least we shall not have a gaining and a losing counties. To me, I thought that was the main problem, Mr. Speaker, sir, why this discussion was so protracted. Now, with the kind of 2 options we have, please, Mr. Speaker, sir, we shall, once we make the decision, we shall be brothers and sisters, because we shall go home knowing no single county has lost or has gained this financial year or even the next financial year. With those few remarks, I stand to oppose.
Senator Utula Kilonzo Jr.
Mr. Speaker, I stand to oppose. And the reason I oppose this adjournment is this. Mr. Speaker, since the last adjournment, or even the previous adjournments, Mr. Speaker, and I beg your attention.
Okay, let's consult in low tones.
Since the last adjournment, and the previous adjournment, Mr. Speaker, we have not met. I sit here as a leader, and I know the sort of caucusing that has been happening over the weekend. Some of us had to switch off our phones because we know what the caucusing they were doing. They called one senator here, one senator there, in a room somewhere, in a room in another place. Mr. Speaker, Senator Sakaja and I were requested to look for a middle ground. That proposal by Senator Sakaja was as a result of request by the majority and minority leader. Now, Mr. Speaker, I would have expected the very least that all those senators who have amendments would have come and debated those amendments. At that point, you can say, before we vote, can we go and caucus? But we know that even the chair of finance was not ready to move. I'm aware, and I can say that openly. Mr. Speaker, I can tell you postponing this is just making sure that we are lobbied and lobbied and lobbied and phone calls throughout the night. We are not sleeping. We are being called, statements being issued. Mr. Speaker, today, I want to see, the book of Psalms says, I shall prepare a table in front of you of your enemies. I want to see senators voting against Makueni. I want to see senators voting and saying the chair of BBI who sits here should lose money. It's simple. Today is the day. Today is the day, and when we leave, Mr. Speaker, I want to see the people who are prepared to hang Makueni. So do it now. Don't postpone our misery. Hang us now. We are ready. So that from tomorrow, no senator will say that there is a country or a county of bushes, of livestock and shrubs. No senator will go to a wedding and threaten us. Threaten us on the floor with your vote. I oppose.
Senator Kindiki Kidure.
Mr. Speaker, I oppose. At the outset, Mr. Speaker, I want to say I have a lot of respect for Senator Orengo and Senator Wetangula, both of whom are my seniors in the legal profession. However, today, Mr. Speaker, this House is faced with the fate of the young man in the book by Chinua Achebe, Arrow of God, who was sent to deliver a diplomatic message to the other village. And an old man called Obierika asked whether it was in order to send the young man without first preparing the young man with the skills to carry both fire and water in the same mouth. Mr. Speaker, what this House has to do today is to be able to carry fire and water in one mouth. Mr. Speaker, the story that brings us here today this afternoon began in the 60s with great nationalists like Ronan Gala and others. Unfortunately, 4 years down the line, they lost the battle. They closed the floor. Those who were favoring a situation as we have today, where a lot of resources remain at the center, took advantage and brought out sessional paper number 10 of 1965, which simply said keep money in Nairobi and use it to develop places near the railway line. And because the Coast Province was then a protectorate, it was left out and marginalized with the rest of the country that were further from the railway line. Mr. Speaker, devolution came to sort out this problem. But today, we are faced with a choice, and no amount of procrastination will help. Let us make our decisions and live with them. Mr. Speaker, as I end, the sponsor of this motion and the seconder have not given any time frames. So we are just wasting time and dithering and looking bad in the eyes of Kenyans. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, we have spoken enough. Those who are against other parts of the country and using very derogatory terms, we want to tell them, you may not be brave enough to answer us today, and perhaps you will keep quiet. But I want to remind you, as I end, of the lion that chased an antelope, and the antelope fell over a cliff. And the lion asked the rock, "Have you seen my antelope?" And the rock did not reply. He asked the other rock, "Have you seen my antelope?" The rock did not reply. And the lion said, Mr. Speaker, you may not answer me, but you have heard me. Mr. Speaker, I oppose.
Senator George Khaniri, then.
Mr. Speaker,
Then after that, we shall have Senator Susan Kihika approach.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to vehemently oppose the motion moved by Senator Orengo, the leader of minority. Mr. Speaker, in my long stay in the House of Parliament, I have never seen a situation where the leader moves a motion and the whip opposes the same motion. What does it tell you, Mr. Speaker? What does it tell you, Mr. Speaker? That even if we extend time, I don't think there will be any agreement that we are seeking for. People have already taken positions on this matter. We have options on the table for us to decide on, and the time is now, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what we were all opposed to was the idea of some counties losing money. Senator Kangata has put it very well, that all the options that we have on the table will guarantee that all counties will get what they were able, what they got in the last allocation. As a Senate, we must be guided by Article 96.
Order, senators. Senators, consult in low tones. Order. Social distancing. Senators, please. Let me tell you, this house will be closed down. Okay,
Mr.
proceed.
Speaker, as a Senate, we must always be guided by the provisions of our Constitution, and in particular, the provisions of Article 96, that the Senate represents the counties and serves to protect the interests of the counties and their governments. And therefore, as a House, we must always be ready to stand for all the counties. An injustice in one county is an injustice to all counties. So we want to know today, who are these senators who are not abiding by the provisions of our Constitution, and in particular Article 96? This selfishness must come to an end. Let us know today. Mr. Speaker, we oppose the motion by Orengo. We are ready to debate the motion by Kibiru and the amendments that by Senator Sakaja, so that we take a decision today. The country is ripe. The country is awaiting the decision of this House. I oppose.
Senator Susan, then I I'll put the question because order members, order. We have to make a decision after I put the question, because if we decide to continue, then we will need time to debate. So because the arguments are clear, those who are for adjournment and those who are against. So once I put the question, we'll put a vote, and then the matter is decided. Senator Susan.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to oppose the motion and state that, Mr. Speaker, as much as I respect the leader of majority as well as Senator Wetangula, I believe that that is not the right direction. As we stand here today, or as we sit here today, the country is waiting to hear what it is that the Senate will come up with regarding this formula. Mr. Speaker, by postponing the decision, we just keep kicking the can down the road. We have had about a year or so to canvass on this formula. We have had many sittings that we have
Let's
been
consult in
to.
low tones. Order, senators. Let's consult in low tones. Let's observe social distancing.
Mr. Speaker, we have canvassed on this issue of the formula for the last 1 year. We have had very many meetings. We have also, in the last few weeks, mobilized and lobbied and come to the House to have the same decision or take the same decision. And every time we have decided to postpone the inevitable. Mr. Speaker, I believe that it is the right time to proceed. Let what will be. It will be the same senators a week from now, 3 months from now, a year from now. And I believe, Mr. Speaker, sir, whatever it is that the senators will come up with here today, even a year from now, some will not be satisfied and some will be. So it does not make sense, Mr. Speaker, to keep postponing what we must do. Mr. Speaker, being a leader means you must be decisive. And we cannot be indecisive and expect to lead this country. So, Mr. Speaker, I call upon the Senate to go ahead today and handle this very difficult issue. Whether you agree with it or disagree with it, let us get it done today. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, order. Senators, take your seats. Observe social distancing. Senator Baringo. Order, senators. I'm going to put the question, then thereafter we shall have electronic voting, and those who are outside will come in our normal way to vote. No. Order, senators. You know, for adjournment, because of we want to give everybody an opportunity, because those who are out there will be disadvantaged. Let us be free to everyone. Yeah. I put the question, which is that the debate be now adjourned. So prepare for the vote. Okay, 1 minute, the bell to be rung for 1 minute. Okay, order. Senators, take your seats. take your seats because we want to vote. And those who are in the other chamber can start coming forward. Sit, take your seats. We are voting. Sit, take your seats. Okay, let's vote. Eh? Bado. Start voting, start the voting. Those who are in the extended chamber to come. Vote, 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 vote. Those to be assisted. Assisted voters, those in the other chamber, please come. Okay, observe social distancing, please, please. I'm pleading with you. Come vote, take the minimum time so that you observe social distancing. Observe social distancing. Honorable senators, those who have voted, clear the way, please.